Tea and a Buddy podcast. I'm Dominic.
And I'm Erica.
Today we're going to be talking about public footpaths in the UK. And if you don't know what that is, you just don't walk that much, do you? I'm sure, so I don't know. You might drive everywhere. Never heard of a footpath. What's that?
A public footpath, yeah.
Yeah. We're going to be talking about them because they're a very serious business here, well, in the UK. And, well, over here, you just don't have them. I mean, I did a Google search. Are there any public footpaths in the US? And it's kind of like,
I mean,
we have trails, but it's like,
trails.
It's not the same thing.
We call them hiking trails.
Hiking trails,
but no, it's not the same thing. But that's what we'll have to explain what a public footpath is, because when we say that in America, we're definitely going to think, the first thing we're going to think is a hiking trail.
Which
public footpath, is going to be, sidewalk. You must mean a sidewalk. You know what I mean? Like, sidewalks go places and that they're public, they're open to the public. But no, again, that's not what we mean.
It's not what we mean, no, because...
So explain what a public footpath is, because...
Well, the right of way it is. A footpath is anything that people have walked on and can pass, and their right of way of walking on that is legally protected in England and Wales. In Scotland, the law, of course, differs a little bit.
Yeah.
But in England and Wales, other than in the 12 inner London boroughs and the City of London, the right of way is a legally protected right of the public to pass and repass on specific paths.
Mm-hmm.
And rambling, the Ramblers Association and rambling, which is a thing...
You can't just say rambling, because we don't know what that means.
Because you think rambling and you think what we're doing now, rambling.
Yes, you think what we do every single podcast. We
just ramble on. Rambling is what is walking, basically.
Okay.
People like to go walking with a stick. Oh, it's a rambler's stick. Oh, it's a rambler.
Because you use the word rambling and you use the word hiking. You use the word hiking also, though. And it's not the same thing?
Hiking, I suppose you're kind of like hiking and you're kind of like what you're doing at hiking. You're kind of doing like a off-road experience. I don't know,
or it's a bit more
because
for
when you
exercise,
you see ramblers, they're not dressed like hikers would be dressed. Mm-hmm. They're dressed kind of like
they've just walked out of the house.
Yeah, and I mean they've got sometimes they've got backpacks, but usually they're just off for a jolly walk.
Hikers are more like wearing exercise
clothes.
They've got like a backpack with snacks and bottles of water, and
I mean they're walking, yes, and they're navigating a path.
Because you can be climbing and hiking, but you can also be climbing and rambling.
Yes, yeah, you can be rambling.
It's very confusing.
It's confusing because, I mean, I suppose if you said hiking in the UK, they'd kind of go, "Oh, you mean rambling?" Just going across the footpaths.
So depending on who you're talking to, it might be the same thing.
You're going rambling. Do you have your big stick? Because the ramblers usually
because
have
hikers
a big stick.
use a stick also sometimes. Yeah.
And, you can do it in groups and stuff and all that, And usually these ramblers use public footpaths, and they're fiercely defensive of anyone who tries to take that right away from them. Because it's common law.
Like when I think of a group going rambling in Britain, they're sort of going through like the countryside, or they're going up a hill or something. They're in a group and they might stop and take pictures of things that they're seeing along the way, almost like a bird watching kind of group or something. Like they're looking to see what they can see, like what's going on in nature today.
We'll just park here for a little bit and have some sandwiches and a cup of tea from the thermos, and then we'll continue our ramble.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's probably channels on YouTube dedicated to rambling the English countryside,
It's so like, it's just so British, isn't it? You can't really, I don't know, you can't really compare it to anything here, because when we go hiking, like, okay, when I think about hiking, like my very first experiences with hiking were when my uncle would come visit when I was a kid. And he'd be like, come on, get ready. We're going to go on a hike, And so me and my brother and whoever, we'd all get like I don't know, because he had his hiking boots and he was used to hiking a lot, right? So
Yeah.
we tried to kind of mimic him. Like, okay, we're gonna go out into the we're gonna go out into the wilderness, whatever. But we would go on to specific hiking trails where there's lots of trees pretty much on either side of the trail. You're gonna be like maybe climbing some rocks and maybe get down into like a dried out riverbed or something, and you know, you kind of need the big stick because it might be a bit boggy, treacherous sometimes.
Yeah, it's hiking. Yeah,
that's what hiking is to me. And then you know, it's trees. It's just loads of trees, though. Like if I say,
I mean, yeah.
If I think of a hike, I'm thinking I'm going through
a forest,
some sort of wooded area.
Yeah,
I would not consider like going on a walk through the country hiking. I think that is where
the rambling.
I mean, you guys let me know.
Ramble.
You guys let me know. Do you consider? I'm trying to think where else you would go do that, but you don't really. To me, hiking is through a forest or through woods of some kind, or up a mountain, up a big hill.
Because they do these things, right? You know, for example, right? You know, like this. A public footpath could have been there for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
It could, you know, it could even go back to Roman times, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just been used so many times that it's common law now, anyone can use it. And if someone wants to build a house, tough. We still use that road. You can't block it.
Yeah.
You know? Which is what there's been long-standing disputes between landowners and ramblers over this for years. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Because now, you know, with everyone, like, you know, like when they took up the railway lines and they paved them over, they were just kind of like, oh, well, we'll just make this a cycling route, which is another kind of right of way, I guess.
Yeah.
Because, you know, in the Countryside and Rights of Way Act 2000, the public also has a right to walk away from rights of way on designated access land. So say, like, you're walking on a footpath and, you know, you're on access land, it means you can stray from the path and go take photos of a cow or whatever, you know, and it's like, or a building or whatever, you know, and that looks nice or whatever. And, and whoever owns that land, tough. They can't tell you to get off of it. They can't do anything about it. They can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
You know, except stop you from coming on the bit that's private, you know. And, you know, some of them do. I mean, this is such the thing. If you own, say, like I bought a country estate, and, you know, it backed onto a public right of way, a footpath.
Yeah.
You can bet, you know, you think, oh, we're so far out in the country, no ramblers. There's going to be groups of ramblers coming through there. And it's kind of like, well, they've got to stay to that bit.
Yeah.
This is not access land, you know? It's like...
Do they camp, ramblers?
Possibly. I think they can, but, you know, they ramble, so they take their time.
If you're taking oh, that's why it's called rambling, because it's just like...
They're kind of... they're not, like, exercising.
Yeah.
They're going on a ramble, just like, oh, hey, we're out in the country, right to Rome, yay, you know? Taking in the air, just having a wonderful time. We've got our dogs and everything. That's the worst thing about with landowners. Like, oh, they let their dogs, and the dogs don't care about public rights of way.
It seems
they don't keep them on a lead.
To me that if you're out rambling and you are taking your time and it's just a leisurely kind of walk.
Yes.
It's like a leisurely hike.
It's a leisurely hike. It's a leisurely hike. So it is.
But it's going to take a long time, isn't it?
It's going to take a long time. It's going to take hours.
Like how? Yeah.
We're going out rambling. Oh yeah, we'll be back in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It's an all-day affair. Unless rain or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But even then, some of the hardcore ramblers.
Can you camp on?
You cannot know. On access.
Yeah, because
on access
footpath is just meant to be walked along, right? Like you
on
can't
access.
Just camp
yes.
there.
Yes. Yeah. You can't camp there. No, that's why they've come up with these kind of like bylaws and everything like that, you know, saying you can't camp on a public right.
You can't like
stop on access land, it might be a little bit of a grey area because it's land.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you can access it, so you're free to ramble on it. But maybe they've come up with some bylaws that are like, nah, you can't camp here, or no sleeping.
Because I think you and I talked about this once. I think maybe when we were watching The Crown or something.
Yeah.
Because like some of their country estates, like Balmoral or something like that, I think I asked you, would there even be public footpaths through, like, because they're plots of land that they have some of these castles or country estates on are so big that it's likely, isn't it, that there's a public footpath that runs through that land somewhere?
Yes, yeah, there is.
And so you can just like go on,
they
they could potentially be out like with all their corgis.
Yes.
And you could see them potentially.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling there's some sort of they've probably implemented bylaws, whereas like where this like we were talking about that with The Crown. You mean when they were someone owned like a shooting thing, and they were taking like rich people out to shoot stags.
Yeah.
And he shot it, he wounded it, and the stag went ooh like that, and he's like, oh, do we chase it? We gotta go. And he's like, yeah, we can't go in there because that's
their land.
And he was like, how did you know? Because there's no like border or sign or anything.
There's no fence or anything.
It's just like, yeah, I'm a gamekeeper. I know. I know where the boundary is.
Yeah.
And
But they weren't on a path though. They were just out.
They were out on the access
hunting.
land. Yeah.
So, but if there was a path that runs through that property, like people can still legally go walking on that, right?
Yes. There's been numerous problems over the years with ramblers and landowners, and one notable example was millionaire property tycoon Nicholas Van Hoogstraten, who'd had a long-standing dislike and dispute with ramblers, describing them as scum of the earth. In 1999, he erected a large fence across a footpath on his country estate in East Sussex, and like discarded refrigerators and stuff to block. He was that intent on blocking them from coming across his land and everything.
With discarded refrigerators.
Yeah, because he bought.
That doesn't look too scummy.
He bought this estate.
Yeah,
and I think it was formerly a hotel or an old people's home or something. And he, it was just his mansion or whatever it was, and he was doing it up or whatever, and so he was just, and he didn't want like the ramblers coming on the footpath,
Yeah.
And he was. I mean, he's still alive,
it's
but
a bit harsh, isn't it? The scum of the earth, calling people who essentially like to go walk outside in nature the scum of the earth.
Yeah, he doesn't like too many people. Does Hoogstraten? I mean, he was convicted of like manslaughter of a fellow businessman or something at some point, and I think he got out on a technicality, but he's like one of those guys,
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like the local ramblers staged a protest of the erection of the fence outside the boundary. And after like 13 years, the path was finally reopened, of legal battles, and that's how long it took. God. But they got their wish in the end,
Yeah.
Jeremy Clarkson, again, he lives on the Isle of Man, and his property has like access land near it, near a public footpath.
Yeah.
And of course, people deviated onto that to take photos of his property, and it's like, oh, this is where Jeremy Clarkson lives.
Now that's not right, obviously.
Yeah, no. He got frustrated, and he tried to like block off access to that, so they'd have to go on the public footpath and nowhere near his property. And I think the Ramblers were like, no, we've got rights, we can do this, and I think it went to like the MP, and they were just like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's actual land or whatever,
Because, okay, wait, explain again now, just for people who like me are lost. What is access land?
Access land is the right to roam. So say like, you've got like the path, which is a little small strip of land. If there's no access land on either side of that, you can't stray from the path.
And how do you know if there is?
Well, because the path will be laid clear, It'll be a clear path.
Yeah.
And, there'll be grass or whatever on the side, and, there'll be like a pathway through it.
Yeah.
And if you go on that, if you step onto the land, I mean, you can step onto it, whatever, but it's like if you go onto the land, you start walking, you're on somebody else's property then,
Yeah.
But if the grass or the field or whatever, either side of its access land, you can roam along it.
Okay, so you're telling me that on access land, there won't be like a really clear path necessarily.
There won't be a really clear path. There may be, but there usually won't be. So, say like, for example, I own this estate and it's got a river running through it, and right next to the river there's a path.
Yeah.
And fishermen wanted to go fish in that river.
Yeah.
But it's on my land.
Yeah.
And it's
they
not
can't do it. They have to stay on the path.
They have to stay on the path, and they have to go further upstream to fish. That's out of my path. Yeah. And they go, well, actually, this is that we're on a public right of way and we're fishing. And this is the best spot where the fish can be caught. Yeah. And it's like, doesn't matter, get out. Get off my land. Get off my land.
You're stealing my
you're
fish,
poaching.
Basically.
Yeah, you're poaching my fish. Yeah. I mean,
they deal with that a lot in Poldark, don't they?
Scotland has law. I mean, Scotland aren't, because in England, I think that you can effectively poach. In Scotland, it's much more. We decide what's public right of way and what isn't.
On like a case by case basis.
On a case by case basis. So so it's like. If the English laird comes up and he buys all that thing, and there was a path going through that, and the old laird who died was fine with ramblers coming through and fishing and all that, but then Johnny Boy comes up and buys the land, and he's like, well, actually, by law, this is all mine now, including all this, so I'm just going to fence this off, and you can't come in. It's like, well, you can't do that because no, you can. You know? It's not common law here. You're in Scotland, pal. You know?
So let me just sort of, for anybody listening who is completely lost, let me just paint a little picture as to what we're talking about. Okay. Yeah. So you can be following a path through a field, and the path is going to be worn down, like you only see dirt. Along the path where people have they've worn it down from walking. There's no grass
hundreds of years.
It's just a little strip of land. You can see it looks like a path, so you're following that, but all of a sudden you come to like a wooden fence that's about knee high or maybe even a little bit taller. At that point in the fence, there may be. I mean, when you're walking up to the fence, you just look like, oh, the path's ended, like we're finished now. That's private land. Obviously, there's a fence around it. But there might be, like, steps to climb up over the fence, right? Where the path runs into...
There's usually kissing gates.
But in one video I saw actual steps. It was wooden fence like that, and there were wooden steps. Yeah. And it just looks like someone's just put these steps here to like get up over this fence into these people's land or whatever.
And it's like, why have they done that?
But then you go on those steps and you go up over the fence, like it feels very wrong, like you're not supposed to be doing that. But then all of a sudden the path continues on the other side of the fence right there where you go back down the steps. Yeah. It's like those steps were purposefully put in for people who are following this public footpath.
Yes.
To cross through these people's land, even though they've got a fence around it.
For example, if you go on like a hike or you go on a walk, ramble in England.
It's so weird and wrong to Americans, though. Yeah. To like go through a fence. Talk about the kissing gates.
Oh, yeah, and the turnstiles and stuff. What the kissing gates are, they're basically to stop animals from getting out. Yeah. Basically, and turnstiles. Because an animal isn't going to figure out how to get through it. So it's like because most of these like
It's again,
public
though,
footpaths go through farmland.
Yeah, I was gonna say again though. It's like
so
there's
you
a
can be
fence
walking
around it
and you can
because
be
it's private land.
It's private land, but because the kissing gates
Mm-hmm.
and stuff, it goes. They have to put that on there.
Yeah.
To like stop the animals from getting out, and the kissing gate is just it's like a semicircle, and the gate swings back and forth. It just like kisses each other, and you've got to kind of like navigate through it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you'll know when you see it, because you'll come to it and you'll go, "How do I get through this?"
Yeah.
If you've never encountered one before, it's kind of like, okay, you push it forward, and then you stand in like the thing, and then you just kind of go and
push it past you.
Yes, push it past you, and then you can go.
Yeah.
And you've always kind of got to like make sure, well, because I mean it's an easy way of like, please close the gate, ramblers, do not close the gate.
Oh yeah.
And so they've come up with this ingenious idea of like, no one has to close. It won't matter because it'll just swing and the animals won't be able to get through unless it happens to be in that sweet spot in the middle where a particularly clever sheep decides, I can just kind of squeeze around this. And I think it's happened before.
They're really desperate to get out.
Because they're like, he couldn't have vaulted the wall or whatever. How did he
Yeah.
get out? And it's just like, he must have gone through the gate. It's like, it's a kissing gate. How can he do that? And it's just like, and the sheep's just like, I figured it out.
Yeah.
Or a cow or whatever, And a turnstile is just kind of like a little step stool that you can get over.
But I remember, I think it was the first time I was in Wales.
Yeah. Oh, there's tons of them in Wales.
And we were just going to the grocery store, I think.
Yeah.
And we went walking, and you took me, at first we were using the sidewalks.
Yeah.
And then we turned.
They're public access,
and
obviously.
then we turned off, like, into this sort of wooded area that looked like there was a path there, but it was not paved or anything.
Yeah.
But you could tell that people had worn it down from walking.
Yeah.
So we walked, I think, through that.
Yeah.
And then maybe there was another sidewalk. I don't really remember. But then we walked and walked and walked. And then at the end, there was one of those gates. And I never understood
what they were for, why they put them in.
Why is there a gate here, just randomly? Like,
it's because horses and cattle and whatever, sheep.
Yeah.
Got to keep those sheep enclosed, yeah.
And
even though there was no sheep around at the time, because sometimes, you go through a field or whatever like that, and there's no sheep or cows or any animals, and you think, where did they go? And the farmer must have come and got them and loaded them up and took them somewhere else to graze or whatever. But sometimes you'll go there and there'll be cows or whatever, and they'll be leading you along the path,
Yeah. It's just so, for Americans, for me anyway, I'll just speak for myself.
Well, I mean, if you don't do it,
it just feels
if you don't walk
weird.
that much, if you don't walk a lot, gates and all that kind of stuff become kind of uncommon to you, don't they?
Well, no, it's
unless
not.
Unless it's your garden
it's
gate.
Not that. It's not that. I mean, it's not walking, because I mean, I've always gone out hiking, like I said, as a kid, or just a walk through the neighborhood, or a walk on the trails.
Yeah.
But their trails, like, they'll either they'll be paved
their trails
with a sidewalk.
On public, they're on like for example,
like parkland. They'll be kind of like on parkland type land.
Yes, parkland. Like, we've got AONBs, the areas of outstanding natural beauty.
Yeah.
They'll have like trails through them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And there may be kissing gates and turnstiles and whatever in there, because they're like, okay, yeah, we don't want the deer or whatever's in this area to be getting out onto this area. They're penned in here, they live here, that's fine.
I mean, you guys do have like set paths, and again, they're not paved, but like, we were just watching a vlog earlier where they were going along a coastal path.
Yeah, the coastal paths are easy to...
And I don't know if those paths were... I don't know if they were necessarily, like, put in.
Usually they're repaved or whatever. They're cycle paths.
But it's not like... Those are not the same thing as a public footpath, though, right? The coastal path. Or
they are a public footpath, as the public can use them, but... Yeah, I'm not sure, because it's like it becomes a little bit of a grey area when they've created one specifically for the public and cyclists and whatever, and horses. Horses is another one. Because it's like, can horses and cyclists go on this path? No, it's just for walking. It's just for rambling.
Yeah.
Because you can get that. You know, if ramblers have, banded together to say no horses and no cyclists. We don't want cyclists when we're walking. We have to get out of the way of them.
Yeah.
They hate Town Lake.
We don't want to have to step in horse poop.
And we don't want to have to step in horse poop. So,
Yeah.
horses can't come down here, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
This ain't the 18th century,
But you guys, these public footpaths in Britain, they're very convenient because I think you can walk all the way through a town without probably having to get on too many like main roads or sidewalks of, you can there's all these ways to bypass like busy areas.
Yeah.
But some of these paths, like I said, you come up to like a fence and you've got to go over it, or like Dominic said, you've got to go through this like kissing gate or this turnstile or whatever. Sometimes there's things like that. And then other times there's things like it looks like you're going into someone's backyard because you're kind of going through this.
And you are, but it's like they can't do anything about it.
You're going through this like little path between two houses, and then it'll like
open up.
Yeah, but it'll go like, I don't know. It's like you're going. It's like it should be access for those two houses is what it feels like.
Yeah.
It should be like some, it feels like it
feels
should
weird.
It feels like it should be their own private access to get into their backyard or their alley or something like that. And you pass through and you keep going, and then all of a sudden, it opens up into a field behind the houses or whatever. I don't know. It's a weird kind of a thing to try to describe in a podcast without you actually seeing what we're talking about. But I hope that we're like painting you clear pictures, because there are some very weird.
If you like walking, then Britain's your place to be,
But there are some very weird paths that feel just wrong to a person who's grown up in America, where we are taught to
respect people's property.
No trespassing is a very big deal.
Well, yeah, I mean, for a start, right, a farmer or a landowner, who owns like an estate with acres and stuff, they can employ a gamekeeper.
Mm-hmm.
And he can drive around this estate and his land over, and you can say, if you see any ramblers, shoot them.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, you can't kill people, but it's just like, but it's just like threaten them with a gun, whatever. And it's like if they get threatened, and it is a public right of way, they can the ramblers. It's the law is on the ramblers' side.
Yeah.
And so the police will come up and go, "Oh, I'm sorry, Laird, you've got, you did the wrong thing there. You can't threaten them.
I mean,
they're legally allowed to pass through this area. And it's like, well, it's my land.
It's kind of, I mean, it's
how dare those scum of the earth be here?
It's kind of amazing, but at the same time, can you imagine that over here? Like,
they just kill them, wouldn't they?
Well, we're going through. There's Brad Pitt's house up the way, but
security.
But there's a public footpath. We can go straight through a corner
security
of his
wouldn't
property.
be able to do anything. Security wouldn't be able to do anything.
How weird is that? You know, it's just weird. And then I mean, being from Texas, we have laws here that say that you can shoot people who are trespassing on your property.
On your property, yeah.
I think they might have to be in your house unwanted, though. I don't know if they can just be.
I'm sure a good lawyer can say, "Oh well, the boundary extends to the sidewalk," and they would clearly on the front lawn.
I'm not sure, but I mean, it is a weird. It's a weird thing. I mean, it's very cool because you get to see, like, I don't know, you get to see parts of Britain that you wouldn't see if you weren't just walking. Yeah. Because you're literally cutting across fields and stuff where there are no roads, you can't get there unless you walk there.
You've got to walk there. And it's all very like hilly and you know.
Yeah.
It's like, it's all magical, isn't it? You go through forests and then open fields.
Just Google British public footpath, and
there's
I'm
a bunch of them. Yeah, there's a lot of them, and there's like long distance.
There's maps, are there? Is that what you were telling me?
There's definitive maps. Obviously, they have to make definitive maps for ramblers to know, so they can be, you know, it's like, well, we're on the map. It says here, where we are is a public right of way.
Yeah.
So Johnny with the security up there shouting us to get off his land is wrong, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know,
I imagine though sometimes they still do get lost and wander onto people.
Yeah, and I'm sure they do, and they kind of probably do, like, you know, the orienteering or whatever, Duke of Edinburgh. I'm sure there's there's a bunch of Duke of Edinburgh kids on our front lawn. What are they doing here? So they go, oh, I think you're lost. This is actually private property. That, you know, the public right of way is back there. You know, that they'll be nice about it, hopefully. You know, and say, oh yeah, you must have got lost. The people do it all the time.
This, I mean, we're over time. We need to wrap this up. But I've just got so many questions. Like, do people ever get lost when they're rambling and like have to call out somebody to come get them? Yeah, because they're just like in the middle of nowhere and they have no idea where they are.
Search and rescue and all that.
Yeah, because I mean that happens when people go hiking
usually
down,
it's ramblers on the mountains in like Wales.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we got to call out the rescue. Well, I guess I don't know who it would be. I mean, air ambulance or whatever it would be, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well that makes me feel
come and get us off the mountain, you know. And they're walking up there in khaki shorts and sand shoes.
Yeah. Like I'm thinking, oh, Britain's all this country full of people who just know how to walk everywhere and know where they can go and they just love it, you know. Yes. And over here we're like people getting lost in canyons and stuff all the time. I'm like, oh, help me, I don't know.
Yes.
You know? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, well, that happens everywhere.
Yes.
People get lost everywhere.
Yes. Don't know where I am right now.
Don't either. Oh, my Lord.
Lordy.
Thank you guys so much, as always, for tuning in. We appreciate your support. Be sure to check us out on social media. We are at TButty, TEABUTTY, on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And we will talk to you next time.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.